So we talked last week, the world, and it's all in your mind. So we're going to sort of launch off of that and go further with that, okay? And I did talk about this. I said, the world is all in our mind, and we have to really take time to breathe this in. Not just hear it with our ears and head, but to really understand, the world, it's all in our mind. Everything is in our mind. Meaning in our consciousness. I don't mean in our intellect, our thinking mind. In our consciousness. Everything is in our consciousness. Religions. There's not a religion out there. They're just reflections of our consciousness. Your mind happens to be Buddhist-like, so there's Buddhism for you. Your mind happens to be pagan, so there's paganism. It's not things that you go and do. They're things that reflect our mind. The only the reason there's Republican and Democrat in politics or any other, whatever they call any of the other groups or branches, is because it's in our mind. We believe in duality, so the outer world reflects it. Constantly, mind you. So the outer world is just a mirror of consciousness. And we have my consciousness and our consciousness. Every one of us can say mine and ours. Why? Because I contribute and we contribute. And when the we is off far enough, I start to feel really upset about that. And I would like to change them. But if I go and try to hammer on them on the outside, the outer, I'm already then succumbing to the belief that the outer is real. And you can't chisel away at the outer. It just gets stronger. So Jesus meant, for a good reason, resist not evil. He's saying there's no reason. First of all, it's not even there. It's just a reflection. It's a hologram. He's also saying, but if you fight it, there's an it to fight. He's also saying, however, change it in your consciousness. Don't fight it on the outside. Change it on the inside. And it's easily said. It would be very easily done if people actually understood it. So to understand it, practice breathing that in. Really continue to breathe it in. The word responsibility comes in beautifully here. Because I really can drop into this and start breathing in the idea, what if it really is in my mind? Well, you can't mean disease. Disease. And the AMA. Yeah, even that. It's all in our consciousness. When we are healed within, none of those institutions that we find to be unhealthy or whatever you think they are would be there. Do you understand? If our minds were healed, those would disappear. So everything is in our minds. Everything. I mean, disease, everything. And then the institutions will say, well, because your body starts to struggle. Your body's in your mind too. So the body will start to reflect things that are reflecting my beliefs and our beliefs. Now, can you change that? Yeah, but you're up against a lot. Because you can say, okay, I got it. The body's in my mind, and I have now decided I cannot die. Anytime disease comes, I'll just heal it. Because it's not real. I'm the one who's in charge. Now, if you were to pull that off, they would start probing and prodding and cutting to find out why you're living longer than everybody else. The world doesn't take it very easily when someone is different. You see what I'm saying? There's the shows on TV, the doctor, I won't name names, the doctor shows and they do about, holistic health and, Oprah's out there promoting some of these people. Wow, and they give you all these new perspectives. You need to take this, and this will whiten your teeth, and this will put a perk in your step, and this will make your knees never fail. There's always something they're selling. And one time, one of their associate producers said, you know what? To them, there's this Michael Mirdad guy. I spoke to one of these people, and they said, we've got to get you on one of these shows. Because you're never sick. You've never been really sick or anything, but you eat nothing but junk food. Do you think those shows were interested? No. Because it'll affect always power and money, even shows that are seemingly holistic. So all of this world, it's in the mind. And you can be the unique individual who says, I'm going to make a change, but you're up against us, the collective. The collective wants to believe you have to die. The collective wants to believe. And underneath, A Course in Miracles will tell you, underneath being sick and dying, it's the ego's way of substantiating that you are not perfect. You are not whole. You are not spirit. You are not light. And it proves it. Because you can die. Light can't die. So it must prove that you're not light if you die. It's a perfect system. But it's actually just a trance that everybody's in. Everybody's in this deluded trance that we live in a limited world. And that we're limited beings just getting by in a limited way in the limited world. So just scratch to get by. And the great messages of masters of light and the angels and God is, this is not your home. You fell asleep, you came here, deluded yourselves into thinking that this is your home, and you started learning to just get by. You succumb to this trance. But it's all an illusion. And to try to make it make sense, there are puppet masters. And I don't just mean the Illuminati or something. There are puppet masters, consciousness, ego, evil, that runs the whole game. And makes everybody, stay asleep and just barely get by. Can anybody really just step up and say, I'm going to break the trance in my own way today? Like going through a divorce, but I'm not devastated the way most people would be. See, you're sending a message to people. You can survive anything. So you don't just survive it. Recognize and appreciate what you did today. And if you see other people do it, appreciate it. Wow, that person taught me to not fret. Because when I fret, it puts more energy into this world is real and I'm nothing. So you can change that whole system. It's easy, but it just doesn't seem like it's easy. It's definitely easier said than done, but that's only because of the belief systems. So in medicine, what they'll do is say something like, okay, well, at a certain age, everybody starts to get. And everybody goes, I was starting to notice that. And all men, are you a blonde, by the way? Because, that's a certain illness. Blondes have certain illnesses that brunettes don't have. They start grouping. And people start going, I'm one of those. I am a female blonde of a certain age. And it's a trance. Because what are they going to do if everybody says we decided not to do that? Geez, now our magazines that are written with articles telling you the latest studies that are made up by lunatics. I'm sorry. I meant by important people on this planet. And by lunatics, I'm saying they're buying into lunacy, meaning it's false. When they tell you you should be suffering from something, it's false. And the world just doesn't quite understand that. And we don't have to hate the world for not getting it. We don't have to hate people for not getting it. Just in your own way, step off of the merry-go-round. In your own way. In whatever way you can afford to do it, step off of the little game, the hamster wheel. And so this world is saying, there's groupings. And everybody fits into these particular groupings. Once upon a time, we could say when we were not as fallen into the illusion, it's all an illusion in this universe, but once upon a time, what they used to say is astrological signs would become your archetypes. Then there were your planets, and those would become ruling aspects of your life, even health-wise. But it wasn't good enough. Then they started going, well, also besides the planets, because we come from the stars, so to speak. So besides the signs and the planets, we're going to also divide the males and females within those planets. Then pretty soon it's age and so on. So it kept subdividing. Why? Because on Earth, people have a very difficult time understanding that things can also just be good and not need improved. So just like the Constitution. Oh, we need amendments, and we need amendments to amendments, and then we need amendments to amendments to amendments, etc. Because human beings cannot believe that anything can be good enough. It's like the great Swami Beyondananda said, one thing that they should have never tried to improve on is Velveeta. Just leave it alone. It's like meditation techniques. You can see God. And you see God, and then you're like, well, I probably should ramp this up somehow. It's even meditation techniques, you've got to keep doing more. And I don't care what the subject is, Pilates, yoga, there's always, you need to do more. Something, I've been doing that too long, I guess I need a new, why? The thing I teach people about communion with God, how to start each day, has almost never changed in all the years I taught it. And here's something to think about. What if I did teach a communion meditation technique, and then 10 years later I say, oh, we're changing it to another one. You know what that means? The first one must not have been very good, which means you may not want to trust the new one I came up with. Things can be good enough, guys, but human beings have a hard time believing it and accepting the durability of this. Now, this gets tricky. So why do we have such a hard time believing that, it's okay and it can sustain, that things can be good? My meditation techniques could be good enough. Maybe me as a partner, maybe I am good enough. Maybe I don't need to ramp this up and change everything. Maybe on some level I need to get just more in touch with I am good enough, rather than, I was standing on the checkout stand and there was a magazine that said 10 things women don't know. I should get that. Well, yeah, number 1 or 0, let's say, is don't buy this magazine. That's what you should know. Because as soon as you read it, it's going to tell you something's wrong with you. There's something you're not doing enough of. I would rather die believing I'm okay than to try to live with 10 things I'm not getting right. Hey, it's okay. And in case you don't know, I'm running for president. No. Wouldn't that be weird? That would be weird. Okay, so in all kinds of ways, But people can't believe that good can last and sustain. Certainly there's nothing wrong with micro adjustments, because you learn a little and you go, okay, I'm going to micro adjust something. I've been doing yoga a certain way, and I'm going to maybe back off on certain things that aren't working for me much and very well, and I'm going to micro adjust. But I'm talking about tossing things out and making complete changes when you don't need to. Starting with the learning to be comfortable with ourselves, starting with dropping into the beingness rather than the constant doing. And so there's a trick, though. There's a problem here, because we have this consciousness. Everything is in our mind. And that means if you want to heal a disease, you are capable, even death, to say, gone, goodbye, and it would be gone, because we created it all. It exists in our minds. It really does. Call it quantum physics, hologram concepts, or call it spiritual consciousness. Give any name you want to it. It's still all true. We're the ones who dreamt up the dream. And therefore we can change our beliefs. But why don't we? Well, this gets tricky, as I said. What God creates, God believes in. So God believes in us. And that's really a good thing. And God repented that he made man. That actually wasn't describing God. God can't repent. God can only see light and good. So it's not saying, well, I made these guys, and after all I've given to you people, that's like a bad parent. That's not God. So God believes in its creations. All right. Now, we're made in the image of God. So we too believe in our creations. Go ahead and ask. You can move, hon, if you want to get a better seat. Thank you. All right. So get that? God believes in its creations, and we're made in God's image, so we believe. Got that so far? We believe in our creations. Now, if we created something, such as the illusion of sickness, and we own that was an error from our insane ego mind and try to let it go, it shatters everything, because we're supposed to be like God and believe in our creations. So if we created sickness, we can't let it go, because it would be fracturing the laws of the universe. But it doesn't, because sickness doesn't come from love. Poverty doesn't come from love. Hate and war and abuse of people doesn't come from love. If it doesn't come from love, it doesn't come from God, within God or within us. And if it doesn't come from love and it isn't of God, it isn't real. So you're not breaking rules, but the ego will tell you, deep, deep, deep down inside, there's a part of us that thinks we're doing something wrong when we try to do right. Such as, break the spell, break the spell. I don't have to believe in this. Now you can say, okay, well now I'm sick and I'm supposed to be dying in a month. What do? I'm going to make it right. I am not sick, I am not sick. Well, yes and no. First, the best way to cancel the things out is to let them know they don't affect you in here. You can try to fix them on the outside, and bless you if you do. We just had a wonderful testimony of a lady who said she attended our recent Christ consciousness course. And she had diagnosed, she had proven severe scoliosis. And she said a couple weeks after the course, it's all straightened. Her back muscles, everything straightened, proven on x-rays and so on. So, scoliosis, physically, you would think that's not possible. Doctors are going to say that's impossible. I had a friend once that had a mild face paralysis that came on suddenly and went to a neurologist. The guy said, that's it. This guy was probably 40. And they said, that's it for life. That's what happens. Now, you're stuck with life for life. And I had a waitress in a restaurant with the same thing. I said, what happened? And she said, I got this attack of such and such. And I said, did you do anything? No, the doctor said, that's it. Poor girl. She was probably late 20s, maybe 30. Both of them, I said, go get an acupuncture treatment. They did, and in both cases, it was cured. And I'm not saying all things can be cured by all the same thing, like an acupuncture or massage or whatever it is. There's different things for different people. But even if you cure that thing on the outside, you have to cure the consciousness too. But what I was saying before is there's a part of us that's terrified at the idea that we're doing something wrong. If God creates, then it's real and it stays. So if we created abuse and war, why doesn't it go away? We're telling God next to our beds on our knees, God, please fix war. God's going, forget it. I can't even hear you. I don't believe in war. You created it. Fix it. And nobody understands how challenging that can be, because underneath it, guys, there's a part of us that believes that we're God, which we are, and therefore our creations are real, which they are, except if they're not love-based, they're not real, because they're not creations. They're manufactured, make-believes. So we can change the world, but we have to let ourselves off the hook. We have to release the guilt and pressure of creating a false world. Is that making sense? Let that really sink in. There's a part of me that's afraid. I wonder why this addiction keeps coming at me. I wonder why my child has this particular condition. You would like to change it. You're in the right place. Your heart's in the right place. You want to change it. But remember, you're also up against a part of you that says, who do you think you are? You can't change things like that. Those are big things. And besides, they're fate and it's God's will. Who has the courage to say, I don't agree? I don't think it's God's will. Here's a little test that we can do, okay? You can keep your eyes open, but here's a little test. Choose a number. We're going to look for everybody's archetype spirit animal, okay? Hidden deep in your subconscious. Not one you think you already know. Deep, deep, deep inside. We want to really get in touch with it. Its color, its origin in this world, this planet, and the name of it, and so on and so on. So, to get there, let's do this exercise. Think of a number between 1 and 9. It can include 1 or 9, but think of a number between 1 and 9. Any number. Try to be spontaneous somewhat, override the intellect. Whatever number you come up with, multiply it, times it by 9. Quietly in your mind. Multiply it by 9. You might come up with a single digit or a double digit. If you have 23, let's say, or 58, add those two numbers together so that you end up with a single digit again. So if you had 53, it'll be 8. But multiply your number by 9 and then reduce it to a single digit. Okay, now, it may not, some of you may not be good with spontaneous math and all that, but just do your best. So whatever number you've come up with, deduct, I guess a lot of you. No. You choose a number between 1 and 9, multiply it by 9, reduce it to a single digit. So if it was 2 digits, just add them together, single digit again. Now, subtract 5 from it, please. Okay? Take away 5. Now, whatever number you have left over, we're going to put a numerological number to that. Whatever number you have left over, we want a letter. So 1 would be A, 2 would be B, 3 would be C, like that. So think of whatever number you had, and then think of the alphabet that would go with it. If you had a 9, it would be I. Okay, so 1 is an A, etc., etc. Now, if you don't mind, think of a country, anywhere in the world, think of a country that begins with that letter you just came up with. Quietly in your mind. Okay? Go to the last letter of the country. The last letter of your country. Think of an animal, quietly, that begins with that letter. What? Now, think of a color that begins with the last letter of your animal. Some of you have it, right?
Yes.
Good, you're keeping up with it. Good. I mean, I would do it on a chalkboard, but we don't have that sort of thing here. Okay, now, those of you who feel like you came up with something and don't say what it is, raise your hand. Good job. Now, I'm sensing, because this is supposed to be looking for your archetypal spirit animal. And so, some of you might have made a mistake. Because we're looking for everything about it. And as most of you know, there are no orange kangaroos in Denmark. Those of you who did it right would have come up with an orange kangaroo in Denmark. Because I'm dang intuitive. No. Now let me explain something. Let me explain something. What that helps you see is that there are these archetypes that everybody lives in, a trance that everybody lives in. And what I just said and walked you through in terms of your spirit animal, someone has told you that when it comes to health conditions. Blonde, light skin, dark skin, this, that. Somebody gave you these stories and you went along with it. And it makes as much sense as an orange kangaroo in Denmark. But it seems, no, this is real. This one's real. Not an orange kangaroo in Denmark. No, this one's real. I have things. And it is passed down genetically. They can prove it. They can't prove it, guys. They only seem to prove it because that's part of the game. That's the insanity. How many of you are familiar with what's called the Allegory of Plato's cave? Good. All right, so I'll just mention that real briefly. The thing is, to break out of this, it's not like you have to kick the doors down of life and go forcing yourself out and say to everybody with a sign on your shirt, this world's an illusion. Sometimes just keep it light. You don't have to be the one to prove you fixed a disease, but just show that it doesn't destroy you internally. Show people that even if you don't have a lot of money, that you're happy. Do just the happiness thing that Mother Teresa tried to explain to people. She found people in poverty much happier than people with wealth. I mean, why, guys? There's something wrong with that picture. Keep things light. People are going to say to you, oh, but you don't know, but I have a child that, and be compassionate, of course, because it is suffering and it's sad. But show people that it doesn't get to you, especially your own issues. It's easy for you to show them their issues don't get to you. Show them that you can make it through a tough day. And I'm saying keep things light. I remember I'm kind of a creature of habit, especially with food. There's only like 4 things I ever eat anyway. So one thing, and I'm still grieving the loss of these things because they stopped serving them, but every day for dinner, I used to drive through Jack in the Box and get these deep fried raviolis. There's like 6 in a little container. And I would eat the edge, then get to the middle with the, ricotta and the, noodle part. But it's deep fried. I mean, there's absolutely nothing nutritional value of it. But that's what I went for, my order of 6. Well, several years ago, this is about 15 years ago or 20 years ago, there was this E. coli outbreak at Jack's. And, there were never cars in line anymore. So I drive through, you just almost can picture, can we help you? There's just like, like they're all going to lose their jobs. Hey, hi, it's me. I'm here for my 6 raviolis. okay. And there's this almost like this, are you sure? Yes. And then to help lighten their dad going, could you sprinkle on a little extra E. coli? Why not? Why not? I'm saying that we really have to lighten things up. Let people realize. I know you don't think that Jesus had a sense of humor. He had his own version of a sense of humor. It's really strange. Lost books of the Bible and testimonies left by people that lived at that time talk about this lightness about him, like he wasn't worried. They paint a picture in, solemn and so on. That's the movies. I'm not saying he was like, dun, 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 dun. I'm not saying it was like Monty Python's, always look on the bright side of life. The crucifixion in Monty Python's movie. I'm not saying it was like that, which was hilarious, incidentally. Especially when they're crucified and they're tapping their feet, as they're stapled onto a cross, And a movie that was produced by George Harrison, by the way, because George was trying to say, come on, like he was trying to help support this idea, lighten up. This whole religion thing got so intense. And Jesus, in his own way, it's not like he was going, hey, did you hear the one about the two such and such? It's not that kind of joke or levity. It's a lightness that I know that everything's okay. And certainly he was able to weep when people were weeping, of course. But he had a lightness about him. One great story from the Lost Books is that when he's hauling the cross piece down the road and to the stations of the cross and all that to Calvary for the crucifixion, one of the times he stumbles, there's these women crying at the side of the road, and he says to them, do not weep. And he says, this isn't real. So there's a deeper translation in some of the Lost Books. What he's saying to them, it's okay. Everything's going to be fine. When you're crying for someone who's passing away, they shouldn't be the one who's consoling you. We should be able to say, man, I admire you. You're seconds away from being in the light. Hey, do me a favor, say a couple prayers for me when you get there. Like, say something that keeps it light and makes them feel okay, because they are okay. If you have your issues and your doubts and fears, wait till you get home and scream into a pillow or something. But don't vent them on people. When you hear people say, I just was at the doctor, don't give them that response. There's your orange kangaroo in Denmark. Now they go, what? I went to get my toenails clipped or whatever. Like it could be nothing, but your reaction puts that and instills that in people. So be careful. Your responses can help cement their beliefs, and it does make a difference. So an allegory of Plato's cave, long story short, it's this seventh book in his Republic. But long story short, it's very powerful. He says, once upon a time, he's basically saying life is like this, where there are these prisoners in a deep, dark cave, never have seen the light of day. They've only ever lived in this cave. And they're chained down, and their heads are only allowed to face one direction. And they're facing a big flat wall. Behind them, there's a fire that's burning. And people, the little puppeteers, so to speak, the masters in the cave, the game players, they will move objects in front of the flame so that those objects would project onto the wall. Where all these people could know, their reality was only the shadows on the wall. Making sense so far? Now, behind them, the actors in this kind of drama, they're moving these caricatures or these puppets or these objects in front of the fire, and it's making the images on the wall. Now, if the people running the show could make a sound to the image, they could make a plant roar, because nobody knows any different. And they could change it if they wanted. They could make anything seem big, small. And then if you were to interview the prisoners, which is actually more like an asylum than a prison, but the prisoners of this cave, if they were asked, they could start arguing. What do you mean? They said plant. We saw a plant. It's like got these pointed things and it roars. What are you talking about? It roars, because the other might not have been shown that. Now they start arguing what a plant is. Something small roars, something large makes a tiny sound, or whatever they wanted to tell them. And the prisoners would start even defending. They would boldly tell, here's what's true. How could you think that? You're a fool. These are called Republicans and Democrats. They're being told something and they believe it, and then they start fighting for it. It's male, female, it's any duality. It's a lie. The kids are playing at 3 months old, 5 months old. They never check out each other's color, skin color. They're being told something along the way says male, female, and so on. It's that we got to return to our innocence away from all the programs. Not easy, but one technique, keep it light. Keep it light. Second, work on those reactions to these things. And in this cave, a prisoner finally breaks out, splits, gets up, and it takes time. Gets out of the cave, the light bothers his eyes. So he can't even look at people or things. At first he has to only see reflections in water to see what things look like up, on the surface. Then gradually he can look at, people over time. And eventually he can look directly at the sun. Now, this is an important metaphor. Now, Plato was trying to say a lot of different things in this. One, he was trying to talk about what happened to his friend Socrates. That was one point. He was trying to say Socrates woke up. Okay? And I'll explain the rest of the story in just a sec. He was also making an analogy of the world. He was also talking about philosophy versus intellect. Because he's saying those that are in the cave arguing about what's true are the intellects and scientists of this world. And he in a way, I think Plato, you could say, didn't really admire Aristotle that much, because Aristotle started as a student of his, sort of, but he starts this empirical science, this empirical thought. You just section things off and they become factual. And Plato was more like, without feeling what something is, you'll never know what it really is. And that's the love, that's the philosopher in its spiritual, mystical sense. So what happens in this story, the guy goes to the surface, now he goes, there's a whole world. Oh my God, it has dimension and color. Wow, we were lied to. Goes back down into the cave. Hey guys, guess what? And they actually tried to kill him. You're crazy. There's something wrong with you. Wherever you went, something happened to you and it messed up your mind. That's one of the main morals of the story. Think about this. The world is all in our mind. And these guys were programmed, their brains were programmed that shadows, and that's the metaphor. This is a world of shadows. Humans are asleep and they're dreaming of shadows, and they're even fighting to prove that they're real. They're saying, you're so crazy. No, this is what that is. It roars. No, it doesn't. It's large. No, it's small. And they don't get it. It's like a bad Dr. Seuss episode or something. And all these people are fighting for their reality, but their reality is actually just shadows. Shadows are not real, guys. They're just light play. So when you look at this, the cave is the world. People living in darkness, and they're insane. And they're programmed to remain insane. That's this world. But the cave is also our mind. And so every one of us has these shadows dancing around trying to prove that they're real. Even my standing and talking about reality and illusion is still part of the illusion. It's just a happy dream instead of a nightmare. Because the fact that we're even standing here talking about the two realities, illusion and reality, on the other side, in God that is, there's no discussion about it. There is but God. To still be talking about it means we're still in the illusion. But in the illusion, you're encouraged to wake up from the dream. Notice how the guy that escaped the cave and went back, that individual was gradually able to look upon the sun itself. What do you think that's a metaphor of? The light of God. See? So you and I, when we're saying, I'm willing to look and say that this world's an illusion, the medical world. See, whatever it happens to be, illness or limiting beliefs or loneliness, they're all shadows. And you're coming to the surface. When you decided to get on the spiritual path, you went to the surface. But be advised, When you want to go back down into the cave of your family or something like that and tell them, hey, guess what? They tried to kill him. They killed Socrates for it. They killed Jesus for it. See, you're not allowed to know about the other world. And if you do, they think you're nuts. So you're going to be a minority. One of the brilliant things about somebody like Martin Luther King is he says, I have a dream. Now, he's not talking about I have an illusion. His speech is telling you about how there was an illusion. I have a happy dream. But I actually believe that when he's saying I have a dream, I can't tell you he knew this consciously, but when he says I have a dream, he's actually remembering the real world. He's not just telling you good advice. There will be little black boys and and white boys playing together. He's not just telling you something that would be really nice. You see what I'm saying? Like good advice. I believe he was tapping into something. It was coming through him, and he was saying, not just I have a dream. It's inevitable. This is inevitable. The reality gets killed within short duration of having said this speech, a short period of time. And because this world wants people to stay asleep. And I'm not trying to hit you with conspiracies. I'm just saying this world wants people to stay asleep. But if that individual could say there's an I and a we, and even if we don't want to wake up, I do. And the world says, we're going to kill you. Well, Martin Luther King was terrified at that. He was having sleepless nights over this. But something came to him and said, don't be afraid, they can't harm you. And obviously it didn't mean his body. It meant his soul. If you take the consciousness of that individual, I would tell you that the closest analogy to Martin Luther King would be like Moses. Moses became an ascended master, so could Martin Luther King be an ascended master. It just, it's someone who woke up from the dream. I have a dream means I woke up from the dream. There's a happy dream that we can still have in this world, and it's going to happen. It's inevitable. But your family members, they may not all dig it, or whomever, your schools, your workplaces, but why are you still trying to fight to get them to get it? You got to basically do one of a couple things. One of them is keep trying to make them get it. And another is share only what you can. They get it or they don't. You walk away clean. Just, not invested. I can't believe you didn't get it. How dare you not get it? And I've heard, a lot of new agey spiritual people say, I just don't feel heard. If you're that spiritual, you don't need to be heard. There's no need involved. You'll know who you are. You just share your light and walk away. If they say, could you tell us more about that light? Objectively, lovingly, share more. But you have to respect that even you reaching the light, like the guy in the story, I'm looking at shadows first, then a little bit of reflections in the pond, gradually at people, and then the sun itself, right? Just like you and I, we have to adapt our vision to a new vision. So do they. Don't make them adapt to your vision. That's not right. It's not healthy. So the world has been in a trance. And we want to break out of this trance. Do your part to bring this light. Is that all making sense? Yeah. It's a great story, the analogy, the allegory as they call it, of Plato. Life is like this dark cave, and we have to experience a personal awakening. Some of us, even watching this program, are going to say, yes, yes, yes. No, never mind. For a minute I was getting excited, but because it's a drag. It is a drag. Jesus doesn't kid around when he says it's like being sheep among wolves. The wolves are not like, could I brush your hair? The wolves are like, they're like, looking good. Yeah, tasty morsels, We look like prey to them because we're waking up. And this world, and I would love to tell you, it's only, glitter and sparkles and happy stuff. You're waking up, and just understand. I'm not saying keep a program that the world will not accept it, because then you're adding to that program. I'm saying just understand where everything's at. Everything in its time. So where do I want to be? I think I'm just going to stay back in the shackles and look at the shadows on the wall. That's exactly what they're doing. And you might say, I'm glad I'm not one of them. Trust me, if you're doing the whole politic thing, did you hear the latest against them? Someone just did a little dance of a shadow on a wall called the news, and you bought it. I'm serious. Some of us live by that, like the news is my Bible. Oh man, try and just imagine if it's true what I'm saying. What if it's true that people make these little puppets on the wall and you believe in them? This person, there's a shadow. This person should have beat that person in the election. I wish this shadow would have beat that shadow. It starts changing when you realize they're all shadows. And then this new thing, medicine, they told you a new sickness everybody's got. You didn't have it a year ago. How come you hear everybody's got this issue now? Why? Someone downloaded that into the consciousness, guys. You didn't suddenly have it, everybody just didn't know. And then all of a sudden we just had it. Someone has to download these things. They download viruses into the people, but they download consciousness too. And they make all kinds of money off of people taking on the belief. Because as soon as you took the belief, then it'll manifest in your cells. So keep it light. Play the game. Know the truth, but respect the illusion. Go ahead and get your checkups and take care. But just not to obsess on these things. And certainly not to affirm that you're in trouble every time something, seems to go on in this world. You can have a big thing like 9/11 happen. Do you know that there are several people on this planet that don't know and don't care that happened? It didn't affect their day. Back in the days, during the Depression, or any other time in history, somewhere out there's somebody living close to the land and they don't know who's king or queen now. They're just out in their fields and taking care of their families. Does that make sense? Right? Is that true? And they didn't know whatever else was going on out there in the world that people were obsessing on. Hey, did you hear this could happen? Well, if it does, like the Buddhists would say, if I can't stop it, then why worry about it? If it's going to happen, it's going to happen anyway. And if I can stop it, why worry about it? Because I can change it. Like not to get caught up in these things. And the world will keep trying to pull you. Have you heard this? This could happen, Anything could go wrong. The what if. And a truly spiritual person it's not that you won't have reactions, but it's how quickly you catch yourself and bounce back. Remember that. Keep bouncing back. Because for every 100 times you hear, did you know this could go on? This could happen? 99 times it doesn't happen. Now, if you worried all 100 of those, and only one actually happened, and stress is the number one cause of illness, we're told, that means you've already succumbed to illness because you worried 99 times you didn't need to. It's like if you're meant to be shot, you'll never drown. I mean, just like it's okay. Or the way Jesus puts it, who of you by worrying can add a single day to your life? And the key word there is what? Who of you by worrying can add? He didn't say you can't make changes. Well, how could worry make any change for you? If I sit around and just think, what could go wrong? Because this could happen. How are you doing anything? In fact, you're shaving years off of your life, the worrying itself. So decide. Do you stay chained up watching shadows and being told what other people want you to think and believe? Because that's what, not those people, that's what all of us have done in this life. I wish my parents would have liked me more with shadows on the wall, parents growling and not being nice. How do you know the reality of everything? Without God, you can't. So that's what Jesus means in the Course in Miracles by saying, I would like to see this through God's eyes instead of my own. And that's how you peel the layers off. Oh my God, all of a sudden. And that's why so many healings around Jesus happened when they would say, I was blind and now I can see. It was a metaphor too. So many people born again saying, God, I was believing in something that wasn't true or something that I thought had power over me. That's that concept of being born again. It's not just a fundamental version of it. It's I'm different. I have a different reality. All of a sudden, there's hope instead of hopelessness. And that comes simply by choosing to be that master that says, out of the cave I go. I'm not perfect. I walk out of the cave, and it's going to take me a while to get my eyes to adjust to pure light. But I'm happy that I'm out, first of all. I can't even see yet because the bright light, can't even see yet. But oh my God, it's a relief to be out of that. If for no other reason, the pain, the suffering, the limitation, my mind face is only allowed to face one direction, all the restrictions of that world is bad enough. I'm glad to be out of that. But also knowing that the shadows were not real, I can't even see yet, but I'm already relieved knowing that I'm going to a better world. Be happy. Even though you can't see it, be happy that you made any shift at all. You're on the spiritual path. It's not making sense yet. The whole world hasn't changed for you yet. You haven't won the lottery yet. Despite doing your prayer wills and your treasure maps, doesn't matter. You're supposed to be happy that you got out of the cave. Then, if you happen to be one who's starting to see images, be grateful. If you're starting to see image of people reflected nicely but in the water, be grateful. Whatever level of new vision that you have, awakening you have, be very, very grateful because it's a proof and evidence that you're moving in the right direction. Okay? Let's take a few centering breaths, please. Remember, man, as you're someone that's coming out of that cave, you do not need to apologize for waking up. You do not need to apologize for coming out of the cave. But there are people left in their suffering, and that's why we're on this planet, to help bring the light safely in measured doses to people so that they can adapt to the idea of waking up and not be afraid of it. Relaxing and centering. Put aside all the stuff of the world. With each exhale, relaxing more and more. Thoughts, tensions, concerns. Taking a moment for an honest appraisal of ourselves and our past. Take a look at your life, and if ever you were in that cave, even if it's today, if ever you've been in that cave, chained looking at a wall, be spontaneous with this, don't defend the thoughts. If ever you've been there, and you have, let's become aware of any time shadows were projected onto the wall and we underestimated how much we actually bought into them as having something we thought they had that we didn't. Someone that had love that we wanted from them, but they didn't give it to us. Marriage that we wanted from them, babies that we wanted, somebody that seemed like they had something, parents' approval. Look through your life and see. All of those times you've had experiences projected onto the wall. Just see those memories projected onto the wall. See them as you remember them. Somebody you lent money to, they didn't pay you back. People that have something you don't have. Something you wanted and they didn't give. Vivid memories. A raise at work the boss won't give. And then what happens to you if you start to sit back in your mind and realize, what if those are projections onto the wall from behind you? What if the world is just projecting images from the flame behind the images? It's like a projector shooting that image onto the wall. What if what you're seeing on the wall is just a projection and you were reacting to it as though it was real? Try to do a mind exploration and shift. How do you feel different when you realize they're just all the world's a stage and each person's playing their part? How do you feel about having reacted? You don't have to be too harsh on yourself. Maybe have some lightening up about it. See it for what it is. Next, if someone were to come and unshackle you, unlock the shackles on your body that keep you bound there, just ask yourself spontaneously, don't think it or defend it, spontaneously, if there's any reason whatsoever that I should be afraid of leaving here and going out of this cave, what would it be? And see what comes to mind. Emerge from the cave and go up above. When you go outside the cave, would you, in your own mind, are you still in the stage, if you're asking yourself where you are in your life today, your spiritual path, are you still in the stage of just emerging and the light's kind of blinding, which means a little intimidated by your growth, by the changes in you? It's okay if that's the level you're at. It's great. Or are you one of those that can see, but it's really reflections in the water? You see goodness, but it's in your counselors or your spiritual teachers, not yet in yourself. It's a reflection on the water. Or are you at the level of seeing people, but not quite clearly yet because the light still gets in the way? Do you feel like you're at the level of readiness to see the real light, to be able to look at the sun itself? Just see where you're at. Be honest. Where am I at about now in my growth? Whatever level it is, enjoy it. Give thanks for it. In your own words, in your own mind, give thanks for it. Much better than I was. And lastly, is there anything you need to shift or do or think that would maybe permit you or allow you to move to the next level of viewing the world? Switching from whatever level you were at to another level of seeing. Is there anything you need to do to prepare for that? If not, you can stay right where you are, and it's beautiful. And remember, there's that final piece where it is going back down into the cave of the world and telling people about it. All of us have done that and feel that call sometimes. All of us get excited about the changes and want to tell other people. But just for a second, become mindful about that. You want to run back into the world, back into the family, back at work, and just shine that light and be excited. Guess what? I had an illness and it's cured. You guys could cure yours too, and want to tell them about it. But Sit with that for a second and watch where you have been overzealous or insensitive. Just own it. And how you might make a micro adjustment so that you can do the greatest good for the most people. Couple of centering breaths and gradually return to the room. Good. How's everyone feeling? Good. Plato's Allegory, it's kind of interesting, isn't it? Imagine writing that 2,500 years ago. You know, that's before the time of Jesus as well. And yet he's talking about illusion and shadows. I mean, wow. You know, truly a bright soul. And to be able to say this world will try to snuff out that light. It doesn't like someone fleeing from the cave and going, wow, free at last, free at last. And then running back, guess what, everybody, we can be free. Oh, no, don't you be saying that. You know, it's not that those people could swear that they're happy where they are, but they don't know anything else. That's why Jesus, a few hundred years after Plato, says, forgive them, they know not what they do. He literally means they don't know what they're doing. They're reacting to shadows. Well, why would they do that? That's all they know. And they've become used to saying, well, but this is right. My shadow's for sure the real one. You know, and politics is a good place to see that and experience that. Science is another one. Or we're proving this, we're proving that. Spirit is never amused by facts of science. Spirit never says, well, geez, wow. These guys, they might be right. I better start thinking about this. We got to rethink this whole universe thing. You know, Jesus could say, you know, maybe I should have stayed dead. I didn't realize I resurrected, you know, because I didn't know you're supposed to just stay dead. But evidence says when you die, you can't come back. I should have stayed dead. You know, the spirit world's never doing that. This is all just shadows, no matter big shadow, small. It never changes the fact that it's just a shadow. All right? Okay. We're going to take up our collection in a moment. Just be as generous as you can be. We appreciate that. You guys remember, never underestimate the value and importance of self-inventory. Like the meditation we're doing is partly a self-inventory. You know, instead of just let's visualize going to a beautiful place or whatever, I like the self-inventories or the meditations to often be a self-inventory where you get to see something about yourself, right? Learn something. Don't just meditate. Come back with something. Either more disclosure about yourself or more connection to God or both. Okay?